Jayam Vishnupad Paramahang Zipper Vrajakcharis Tadasisamad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantharaj Sri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Sri Radha Radhanath Ki Sri Giri Govardhan Ki Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Sankirtan Yajna Ki Gopremanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Sri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Jai. Devotees, today we are reading from Caitanya Caritamrita Madhya-lila chapter 16, the Lord's attempt to go to Vrindavan. And we will begin with verse 150. And just to bring us up to date, Lord Chaitanya is on his way to Vrindavan, at least that he's trying. He's left Puri, went across to Bhuvaneshwar, then, well, from your side, what would you say? Anyway, he went across to Bhuvaneshwar, then up to Cuttack, where he met Maharaj Prataparudra, who, and we talked at some length about the history between the two of them. Lord Chaitanya, his initial, you could say, anyway, being strongly not just opposed to meeting the king, but just refusing to meet the king. But then, after the incident in the garden, where the king disguised himself as an ordinary person and recited the gopis' prayers, prayers to Krishna. From that time on, Lord Chaitanya became willing to meet with them, and when they met in Cuttack just now, the Lord embraced him, and it was very obvious that they really had very strong and very wonderful relationship. Then after that, the very last thing that we read about was how Lord Chaitanya became concerned that Gadadhar Pandit, who had taken a vow, it's a particular vow, it's called Kshetra Sannyas. Sannyas, of course, means the renounced order of life. Basically, one is fixed in that. But in this case, it's Kshetra sannyas, Kshetra meaning a sacred place. So such a person takes the vow to stay in that sacred place. Just stay, come what may, to remain there. And engage, of course, in devotional service wholeheartedly and, with great total dedication. And Gadadhar Pandit, Gadadhar from the Panchatattva, he had taken that Kshetra sannyas to stay in Puri and worship Tota Gopinath and not leave and not, of course, neglect the service of Tota Gopinath. But now Lord Chaitanya is up, he's already passed Katak, and he's moved on to a place, I think, Chaturdwara, and further even we'll read about it in a moment. And they're way out of Puri. They're way out. It's, I don't know how many kilometers, but maybe it's 100 or... Anyway, it's a good distance from Puri, so Gadadhar cannot say that I have not left Puri. He's left Puri, and in this way broken his vow of Kshetra sannyas. So we read how Lord Chaitanya was, actually he appreciated it, that Gadadhar was so totally dedicated to him, to Lord Chaitanya and service to Lord Chaitanya. He appreciated that, but externally he showed anger and told him that, you've gone too far, it's done now, but you're not going any further. You just go back. So the Lord demanded that. And I think the last thing we read was how, I think it was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, tolerating separation from you, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has protected your vow with great endeavor. So anyway, sending him back, it's sort of, he broke the vow. Lord Chaitanya already said that, it's too late now. But if he goes straight back, that's better than nothing. And then Gadadhar fainted. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya revived him, and then they went back to Puri. So now Lord Chaitanya's continuing on. Oh, and we read that all these are misgivings of loving affairs. Whoever listens to these incidents gets the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet very soon. I think that was the last thing we read. Yeah. So, you are all, Kshetra sannyasis. Yeah, you know what I mean. But really, I was just saying that, it's just so nice how you're so dedicated to serving Radharani despite, Krishna, despite different things. Yeah. Of course, being dedicated like that, as long as you don't sneak out, and mix with the outsiders, the out crowd, as long as you don't do that, as long as you really stick at it, you're also protected from the pandemic. So that's a big plus. Plus plenty of Mahaprasadam. And just as I was walking up some minutes ago, I checked the Mahaprasadam, little thing with the different little places. And there's still some Mahaprasadam left there. Normally it'd be gone. So, well done. Really, seriously, well done. Because I know it's not easy. It's not easy for me too. But we have our duties, and you know, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna really insists on the importance of sticking at your prescribed duty, your duty which you receive in the authorized way, sticking at that, and how the Lord appreciates it so much. So thank you. You are all really good devotees and good association. So here we go then. We will start with verse 150. Dui Raja Patra Ye Prabhu Sangayaya Yajapura Asi Prabhu Tare Dilena Vidyai. You know, these verses, some of them, they've got extra syllables or less syllables. It's not as rigid as Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, so sometimes it's a little tricky getting the meter. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his party arrived at Yajapur, the Lord asked the two government officers who had come with him to return. And here we have a purport by Srila Prabhupada. The place called Yajapur is very well known in Orissa. It is a subdivision of the Cuttack district and is situated on the southern side of the Vaitarani River. Formerly, great sages performed sacrifices on the northern bank of the Vaitarani River. Consequently, the place is known as Yajapur, the place where sacrifices are performed. Some people say that this was one of the capital cities of King Yayati, and that from the name Yayati Naga, the name Yajapur has come. As stated in the Mahabharata, Vanaparva chapter 114, Ete Kalinga Konteya Yatra Vaitarani Nadi Yatra Yajata Dharmopi Devam Sharanam Etyavai Atravai Rishayonye Cha Pura Kratubir Ijire. According to the Mahabharata, great sages formerly performed sacrifices in this place. There are still many temples of demigods and incarnations there, and there's also a deity of Sri Varahadev. This deity is especially important and is visited by many pilgrims. Those who worship the Supreme Lord's energy worship Varahi, Vaishnavi, and Indrani, as well as many similar forms of Devi, the internal energy. There are many deities of Lord Shiva, and there are many places along the river known as Dashashvamedha Ghat. Sometimes Yajapur is also called Nabhigaya or Viraja Kshetra. Okay, so that's just some sort of background information, you could say. All these places have their backgrounds. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadesh Tarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakapaturibhyas Chakripas Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. You know, as I was reading this, I was thinking of Nrsimhapali in Navadvip Dham. Lord Nrsimhadev came there after killing Hiranyakashipu. This is what, well, even Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. So it's authoritative. Lord Nrsimhadev came there and washed his hands or paws and claws in the river there. The river is no longer there, but what is there is there's a lake. You can see, I'm sure some of you have been there, and you can see how there was a river. There's it's pretty clear. There's like a river bed. There was a river bed. So there was a river, now there's a lake. Nice lake, actually. And Lord Nrsimhadev washed the blood of Hiranyakashipu off his claws, for sure. Yeah. And the blood, blood, of course, is something extremely contaminated and contaminating. But this blood from Lord Nrsimhadev, from Hiranyakashipu, from Lord Nrsimhadev killing Hiranyakashipu, it's Hiranyakashipu's blood from his abdomen. And like that. So it was purified by the touch of the claws of the Lord. And let us just say hands with claws, but anyway, hands of the Lord. And that blood is still mixed there in the lake. And so when you bathe in the lake, you're having contact with the purified blood of Hiranyakashipu, and that's good for you. Very nice. And because the Lord came there and he spent, I don't know, but he was there for at least some little while. So like this place here, Yajapur, the demigods came. Many demigods came. And maybe the Lord stayed for some time, but I don't know about that. But anyway, many demigods came and built small houses there and lived there. Many of them. And therefore, another name for Nrsimhapali is Devapali. In fact, if you look on a map, generally you'll see Devapali. Yeah. And so there's a whole background there. And similarly here with this Yajapur, there's a whole background. Great sages performed sacrifices formally. And because it was such a sacred place, there's a whole history of sacrifices being offered there, for years and generations and maybe hundreds or thousands of years. So demigods came. Yes. And doesn't say exactly that they took up residence as they did in Nrsimhapali or Devapali, but many temples were established, and I'm sure going back, many demigods would visit, and different pastimes would take place. So like this, many of these places have backgrounds historically. I mean, sacred backgrounds, not just, some history of some material history, but some transcendental history, religious history, spiritual history like that. Lord Varaha, like at Tirupati. Tirupati is a place of Lord Varaha. And there's very important Varaha temple there. I mean, everybody knows the main temple is Balaji, but there's very important Varaha temple there. And it's considered to be like a Varaha Kshetra. And Lord Varaha owns the area. And Balaji, the main deity, Venkateshwar, he what did he do? Did he buy? I think he's renting. He's either renting it or he bought it for a good sum from Lord Varaha. And now the devotees are encouraged to give lots of donations. And if you've been there and seen the situation in Tirupati financially, it's totally out of this world. The idea is that you got to donate so Balaji can pay the rent to Varaha. Yeah. Anyway, there are backgrounds, and it's really interesting. Sometimes it's just really interesting. People say, you know what sorts of people. They say it's mythology, but actually it's true. Like you travel around Vraj Mandala and you visit the villages, and there are histories behind every village. Every single village is situated on the place of a pastime and is named after the pastime. In the meantime, some of the names have become corrupted, from Sanskrit into what they call Prakrit, which is like a in between Sanskrit and Hindi, and then into Hindi, and then into Brajabhasya, the local dialect. But if you're sort of tuned in, then you understand what pastime is there. Oh yeah, it's amazing. And in some of the literatures too, there are stories behind the stories behind some of the places are explained. It's really nice. It's really amazing. So similarly here with Yajapur, we continue. Well, I'll give you one example from Vraj Mandala. It's really quite something. When Krishna left Vrindavan, he left from Nandagram. He was in Nandagram. And he left from Nandagram on the chariot driven by a Akrura. And there's a road that just goes straight out, not quite to the horizon, but for a good 1 or 2 kilometers, straight road, which used to be the road to Mathura. And that's the road Krishna took. And as Krishna was going, the Brijbasis followed. And from time to time, they stopped him and asked him to go back, but he just continued on, and then they'd follow him further and stop him again. So there, particularly that I'm aware of, that, in my experience, 3 main villages where they stopped Krishna. The first one is called Bijvari. And Bijvari means like a thunderbolt, like a bolt of lightning. That's what it means. And the history is that when Krishna was leaving, the gopis stopped him at that place and begged him to come back, but he wouldn't. So when he then continued on, they all fell to the ground, just like lightning bolts come crashing to the ground. Therefore it's called Bijvari, like thunderbolts. And we visited there, the first time we visited there, there's a kund, Naina Kund, which basically means the kund of tears. And it's the kund formed by the tears of the gopis. And we went into the temple there. There was one old Babaji. He was sitting there chanting. He just sort of ignored us. But I spoke to him in broken Hindi. And I asked him, what did I say? Something like, Ye gaun konsa mahatmya hai. Does that make sense? Ye gaun, this village, konsa mahatmya hai. What is the glory, of this? And above his head, there was a picture of this pastime. Krishna's on the chariot, the gopis are just here and there and just on the ground, and someone's trying to get Krishna off the chariot. And I asked him, so, as they say, it's understandable. And he didn't move. He just pointed up like that to the picture and carried on. So, but it's, their history is there. The depth, the transcendental depth, particularly in Vraj Mandala, and also in Navadvip, the transcendental depth is really just amazing. Prabhu Vidya Dila Roy Yaya Tanrasane Krishna Kata Ramananda Sane Ratre Dine. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu paid farewell to the officers, and Roy Ramananda continued on with the Lord. The Lord talked to Ramananda Roy about Sri Krishna day and night. 152. Pratigrame Raj Agyaya Raja Brityagana Navya Grihe Nana Dravye Karaye Sevana. In each and every village, in compliance with the king's order, government officers constructed new houses and filled each of them with stocks of grain. Thus they served the Lord. E Mata Chali Prabhu, Remuna Aila, Tata Haite Ramananda, Raye Vidya Dila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally arrived at Remuna, where he bade farewell to Sri Ramananda Roy. Yes. Well, there's a little purport. Let me just read it. It was stated in the first chapter of Madhya-lila, verse 149, that Ramananda Roy was bade farewell from Bhadrak. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that in those days, the place called Remuna also included Bhadrak. Bhumete